Now, today we have 4 programs and a Lifetime Achievement Award winner that the committee felt epitomized really the kind of risk-taking and innovative thinking that has led to new or groundbreaking programs that are worth recognizing. In one way or another, really, these innovators and their work have led to better client services. There are lots of disruptors to the traditional delivery of legal services, especially now. And since March, we've all seen it. Our profession had to be prepared to deal with not only the pandemic, but deal with all these changes that continue to take place and will continue to take place as we move into the future, even after the pandemic has passed. And we as a legal profession need to treat them as opportunities. And these innovators that you will meet today are doing just that. And that's why it's so gratifying for me and the committee to be able to highlight them and recognize them and let them tell you about what they do. The first honoree is a group of people that work to improve reliability of forensic science in courtrooms. So let's start with this. Faulty, misleading, or false forensic science is responsible for an estimated 1/4 of wrongful convictions. The Center for Integrity in Forensic Sciences has been working the past few years to counsel attorneys about the proper use of this kind of evidence. This nonprofit center was founded by Keith Findley, Jerry Buting, and Dean Strang. It is led by Executive Director Kate Judson. Congratulations, Keith and Kate, to both of you and your team for your innovative work. We're happy to have you today.
Thank you so much for this award. We're so grateful to the State Bar for this honor. I'm trying to move it so people can see it. Our innovation addresses how too often the criminal legal system fails the most vulnerable among us, and how too often our system fails to live up to our highest ideals. As Tom said, it's now known through research, testing, and investigation that 1/4 of exonerated people were wrongfully convicted because of the use of faulty forensic science. And that means that science previously believed to be highly reliable, if not infallible, sent people to prison for crimes they didn't commit. And in many of those cases, it meant that the flawed science led investigators down the wrong path, so the real perpetrator remained free. Some of these individual injustices have been remedied, but it's not enough to take cases one at a time, because this approach deprives too many of justice. Citizen innovation comes from recognizing that what is now needed is systemic change. So we bridge the gap between law and science. These two worlds differ in many ways, but in order to reliably serve people, they need to integrate, not clash. That's why we're working with law students and science students to approach these problems together through coursework and externship opportunities. That's why we're teaching lawyers, judges, and other stakeholders about good science and how to recognize scientific testimony that's not so good. That's why we're in courtrooms advocating directly for change. That's why we're advising policymakers and legislators about failings in the system's response to scientific evidence, where we've seen it go wrong and where we might start to make it right. We're working for these changes to help our legal system fulfill its promises of equity and fairness. Accused people, victims, families, and communities deserve to be able to trust that justice will be done. And we're so grateful to you all for recognizing us, for honoring us, and for having us here today. I think Keith has a few words as well, so I'm gonna mute myself. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I want to join Kate in thanking the State Bar for this wonderful honor. A few things are as important to the legal system as its ability to determine guilt and innocence accurately in criminal cases. And this honor helps us work to improve the integrity of forensic science evidence, which is so important to this task. I also want to briefly take a moment to thank a few other people who made this all possible. First, I want to thank my co-founders and collaborators, attorneys Dean Strang and Jerry Buting, along with attorney Joe Boucher, who has joined our governing board, all 3 of whom could not be here this morning. Second, I want to thank our advisory board, which is really a remarkable group of national leaders in both science and law. The full list of advisory board members can be found at our website, sifsjustice.org. And among them, I want to give a special mention to Dr. Joe Handelsman, who is the director of the Wisconsin Institute for Discovery and a world-renowned microbiologist who is also helping to co-teach the course we run on forensic science for law students and science students. Third, I need to thank our staff, headed first of all, of course, by our executive director, Attorney Kate Judson, whom you just heard from. I must say that hiring Kate was the best decision we've made yet, and she has helped guide SIFS to make a real and significant impact so very quickly. She's aided by her staff, Manya Chowdhury and Madeline Whedon, and of course I need to recognize all of the volunteers along with the law students and students in the sciences who have worked so diligently to advance our mission. So again, thank you to the State Bar for helping us all work toward a goal that we all share, and that is, of course, accuracy in our criminal litigation. Thanks very much.
Keith and Kate, thank you so much for being here today and for those remarks and for your terrific work. Very much appreciated and well earned. So congratulations. All right, our second innovation, let's turn to court operations during the pandemic. So when COVID-19 hit in March, we all had to make some pretty abrupt changes and figure out how to keep things going, something probably very few of us were really prepared to do on that scale. It was a real concern at the time as to how the state court system was going to be able to provide even the most basic critical court services. Well, on March 22nd, the Wisconsin Supreme Court suspended most in-person court proceedings and ordered them to be held remotely. So Judge Randy Koschnick, the director of state courts, and his team, in about really a week's time, researched, tested, and rolled out to the entire court system Zoom technology, permitting the court systems to really operate across the state. Judge Koschnick's team and the CCAP staff worked with judges to set up YouTube channels for each circuit court branch, every one of them, to allow remote access to the public. CCAP provided Zoom licenses and training to the state's 249 judges, as well as court commissioners and all of the court staff. Really a pretty monumental undertaking, if you ask me. The technology and the quick response really helped not only to transform how the court operations were handled, but it also kept the courts open and responsive. And really that was the most important thing. I think it saved literally thousands of hours by travel for litigants and lawyers. It protected the health and safety of everybody involved in the court system during the pandemic. It's pretty remarkable. I often meet virtually in my work with lawyers and other people in lots of other states. And many times when they ask about what's going on in Wisconsin, and I tell them our court system is up and running and operating and open, they're amazed and they want to know how and why. And we have some folks here who can tell you how that's happening. Judge Koschnick is here today to accept the award. Congratulations, Judge Koschnick, and thanks for keeping our courts operating during this very unpredictable time. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation today. And thank you for the lovely award, which I have here at my side. In preparation for today, having lived the proverbial necessity is the mother of invention, I did some quick research to see how that term came into being. And it's a very interesting etymological history, which stretches from Plato in 375 BC to Albert Einstein and even Frank Zappa in the current era. So it's been true to humanity for all those hundreds of years. Basically, Plato in the Republic is probably his most famous work, which is a Socratic dialogue on justice and a just society, coincidentally, said essentially, according to most translations, our need will be the real creator. And Albert Einstein observed that in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. And Frank Zappa's contribution was naming one of his bands, of course, the Mothers of Invention back in the 60s. But I think back to the moment when me and the leadership team were thrust into the situation where we had to keep the courts running, but of course we had to respect the needs of people to be free from being exposed to the virus. And it was a special moment. Effervescent is a word that comes to mind. I had mainly Jean Bosquet was there. She's my chief information officer, and she developed and runs CCAP in my office. And Diane Fremgen is my deputy director of court operations. And so we're sitting around the table in mid-March trying to figure out how we're going to keep the courts running and keep them accessible to the public and the media. It's amazing how little pieces that normally wouldn't be put together coalesced together. So Diane Fremgen had been working on a project to have interpreters appear remotely, because it's hard to get interpreters, especially in uncommon languages, to remote parts of the state. and Jean Busquette have been looking into different meeting technologies, including Zoom, to try to save some time and money on our routine meetings involving judges from different parts of the state. I had been on the bench in Jefferson County for 18 years before becoming the director of state courts 3 years ago. And we used a lot of video conference technology in Jefferson County for a number of reasons, to reduce transport costs, to enable people to appear remotely for relatively brief hearings instead of having them travel great distances. And so as we sat together and worked through the problems and the possible solutions, it was really a magical moment to see it all sort of come together, and the Zoom emerged to the top, because I knew from using it in some other parts of my life that it was easy, it was flexible, it had a lot of options that you could use, it had the higher level licenses that you could buy, which we bought for the state, obviously, with security protocols and so forth. And it was really just amazing to see it all, work out. And I had a lot of concerns. I had a few sleepless nights, many sleepless nights. Are the judges going to like this? Are they going to resist it? And of course, they're all independent elected constitutional officers, and I can't order them to do anything. I simply give them the tools and recommendations on how to use them. And yes, and most of them did begin using Zoom and were eager to learn. And so CCAP went on an extensive training and installation program, and the court operations people on the ground had to integrate video conference equipment in various courtrooms, which varies from county to county, with a standard Zoom technology. And so I think things did work out pretty well. And it's opened up opportunities that we may never have gotten to, or it may have been years in the making. Like Tom mentioned, we've got probably a hearing today or in the next couple of days on the election lawsuit, which is going to get national attention as a result of this technology we've implemented. We can make it available on YouTube to national media and have a hearing on relatively short notice, and really allow the public to see what's going on there. So on behalf of my entire team, I want to thank the State Bar for recognizing and fostering innovation. I think it greatly enhances the level of justice that we can deliver in the Wisconsin court system. It demonstrates how the bench and the bar can work together to pursue justice, to protect individual rights, to provide a civilized manner of resolving disputes, and to keep the courts operational and accessible to the public, even during difficult times like the pandemic. And I'm working on a petition to the Supreme Court to modify some of the Supreme Court rules to accommodate Zoom technology going forward, so we can harness and continue to benefit from this technology even after the pandemic has passed, which is hopefully in the very near future. So on behalf of my staff, I just really thank you so much for the award, for recognizing innovation. And I want to encourage you as State Bar leadership to continue to look for and to recognize and to promote and publicize innovators. It does a tremendous service to the public at large. So thank you.
Thank you, Judge. And in 7 years, you are the first recipient to cite Frank Zappa. So we appreciate that reference. That's awesome. I really like that. So thank you. All right, on to compassionate release. There's a project at the UW Law School called the Legal Assistance to Incarcerated People. It serves prisoners dealing with life-limiting or terminal medical conditions by campaigning for compassionate release. It's one of only a few clinical legal programs in the country that deals with this issue. The project assists Wisconsin prisoners with post-conviction legal support in a wide variety of areas, but the project stepped up its services for compassionate release clients when Professor Renagh O'Leary joined the law school faculty back in the summer of 2018. So what is compassionate release? Well, under Professor O'Leary's supervision, law students have been working to demonstrate that their aging and sometimes very ill clients meet provisions for early release under Wisconsin statute. So what does this do? Well, Wisconsin's prisons are overcrowded and care for the sickest inmates is often lacking due to shortages of trained staff, medical resources, accommodations, things of that nature. That means inmates who pose little threat to public safety often suffer needlessly in their final days. Compassionate release basically gives these clients a chance to die with dignity outside of the prison walls. And aside from the ethical arguments, there are some pragmatic reasons that this can be a good thing too. The number of older Wisconsin inmates that are in deteriorating health is growing pretty rapidly too. As I think Professor O'Leary will tell you, incarcerating sick people is significantly more expensive. Close quarters and the scarcity of hygiene products makes prisons pretty high risk settings, really, for the spread of infection. And of course, this is especially important during this pandemic, where we have really seen a pretty rapid rise in COVID-19 cases in our prison system. It's an innovative and relatively new way to address some of the issues in our prisons that, frankly, most people don't even consider. Renagh is here with us today to accept her award. Renagh, thank you very much for being here, and congratulations on your work.
Thank you so much, and my thanks to the State Bar Association. It is really an honor to be in such illustrious company today. So as Tom mentioned, I teach in a clinic at the UW Law School called Legal Assistance to Incarcerated People. That's part of the Remington Center at the UW Law School. And speaking of innovation, I think the creation of the Remington Center in the mid-1960s was an incredible innovation. There is no other law school anywhere in the country that matches UW's commitment to serving people in prison through law school clinical programs. As Tom said, our compassionate release advocacy is done by our fantastic, enthusiastic, and zealous clinical students. Compassionate release is early release from prison based on a serious or terminal medical condition. So all of our compassionate release cases begin with a life-changing diagnosis. Diagnoses like metastatic cancer, advanced heart disease, or end-stage kidney disease. In our compassionate release work, we've represented people as young as their early 20s and people well into their 80s. Some of our clients are serving relatively short prison sentences of just a few years, and some are serving sentences of decades. They're in prison for many different reasons, but what all of our compassionate release clients share is that they have received a life-changing diagnosis while incarcerated, and they're grappling with the immensity of that while they are alone and isolated serving a prison sentence. Something that our clinical students always find surprising and revealing is that even among lawyers who work inside the criminal legal system every day, judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, there's often little knowledge about the realities of prison, about the day-to-day, how life unfolds while people are serving prison sentences. In our legal system, we have lots and lots of lawyers involved at the front end when someone is facing criminal charges, and many fewer lawyers involved at the back end when someone is serving their prison sentence after their direct appeal has long been resolved. Part of what I think is most valuable about compassionate release work is that it brings our clients' experiences of prison back into the courtroom and puts their stories and their experiences in front of decision makers who are making sentencing decisions every single day. And as our state and our state bar continue to reckon with the crisis of mass incarceration and the profound racial disparities and injustices of our criminal legal system, I think supporting work that brings lawyers and law students into prison where they can hear the stories and learn from people who are incarcerated is really, really important. So thank you so much to the State Bar for this award.
Professor O'Leary, thank you very much, and thanks for being here today. Very much appreciated, and certainly appreciate all the work you do. Let's turn to domestic abuse survivors. When COVID-19 hit and we got plunged into this pandemic, domestic violence rose pretty dramatically. From January to April of this year, there were as many domestic homicides in Milwaukee as there were in all of 2019. During the Safer at Home mandate, domestic violence rose almost 30% in Milwaukee alone. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, volunteer lawyers cannot represent domestic abuse victims at restraining order hearings in Milwaukee County. So to combat the lack of legal representation for the victims, Quarles and Brady attorney Emily Fons created a legal hotline for victims to call prior to their restraining order hearing. They can speak with an attorney to get legal advice. Lawyers can tell them what the proceeding will be like, how to best present the facts of the case, how to prepare the abuser, prepare the person if the abuser is present. And remember, for many of these victims, this may be the very first time they've ever been in a courtroom, so it can be very daunting and intimidating for them. As a board member of Sojourner Family Peace Center, Emily worked through her relationship with Sojourner to create the hotline and have it in place for victims seeking services through Sojourner. The hotline went live this past June. Applications for restraining orders are now down significantly, but Emily and her volunteer staff of about 7 lawyers were there to make a difference when it was needed the most. Attorney Fons is online with us today to accept her award. Congratulations, and we really appreciate all the work you're doing in this area.
Hi, thank you, Tom. Thank you really to the Wisconsin State Bar for this award and for the recognition of the volunteer work that's done with victims of domestic violence. Thank you, Joyce, for coordinating and getting my award safely to Milwaukee. It arrived in beautiful condition, as you can see. So thank you so much. I think when we think about this year, Merriam-Webster said that the word of the year was pandemic. But I really think that the word of the year should be pivot. And I'm sure we're all sick of hearing that word, but that's what a lot of us did this year. We pivoted. What I normally do, I'm now practicing with Godfrey & Kahn, but I'm by trade a corporate merger and acquisition and antitrust attorney. So representing victims of domestic violence in a courtroom setting is very much so outside my normal comfort zone. Many of my colleagues are shocked that I even know where the courtroom is. But I really think it's important for people to get outside their comfort zone and do work that is innovative from what they normally do on a day-to-day basis. I started representing victims of domestic violence through the Lawyer for a Day program at Quarles & Brady about 6 years ago. And I found that the work was invigorating. It was very different from what I did on a day-to-day basis. And it had the human element that I was lacking in my normal day-to-day work. And so when I was working with these victims and helping them navigate some of the worst days of their lives, I felt like it was really making a difference. And so when the pandemic hit and we couldn't work with these victims in person, we knew that we had to have a solution. And oddly, in Milwaukee County, the restraining order hearings are held within the family court system. And the courtroom that holds these hearings does not have technological capabilities. So it was one of the few types of court hearings that could not be on Zoom. It could not become a remote situation. So people actually still had to go during the throes of the pandemic in person in order to get the restraining order and in order to have their hearing for the permanent injunction. So we really felt like, they go into court and they don't know what they're doing. They don't even know where to go. And having the hotline gave them the ability to connect with an attorney, to give them brief legal advice on their case, explain what the process would be like, explain how an advocate from Sojourner would physically be in the courtroom with them, to just offer, some physical and mental support while they were there, which is really important because a lot of times they feel like they're going to be in the room with their abuser alone. And that's a terrifying thought for a lot of these victims. So, I think it's important for attorneys to constantly innovate, constantly get outside your comfort zone, and look for areas where you think that there needs to be change. Domestic violence in Milwaukee is a serious, serious problem. This year has exemplified that in so many ways. And so I think, we just need to continue to find ways to reach our survivors of domestic violence and continue to help them navigate an otherwise daunting legal field. So thank you so much.
Emily, thank you. And thank you for being here this morning. Very much appreciated. This is the 6th year in a row we are recognizing a lifetime legal innovator, somebody whose work really has left a long-term impact on our profession. I can tell you that this year's winner has a history of at least 3 decades, really, of representing low-income people who lack healthcare access. It's, as I was telling him this morning, no news to him or probably any of you, but the work in the healthcare field is one that is an uphill battle. And Bobby Peterson is someone who has spent nearly 30 years continuing to push that rock up the hill, no matter the obstacles and the setbacks. Bobby Peterson is the executive director of the Madison-based ABC for Health. He is also co-founder of the State Bar's Public Interest Law section. Bobby became focused on uninsured or underinsured patients who couldn't pay their medical bills while he served as a law school intern, as a matter of fact. His inspiration, really, I think, from what I've read and what I know of Bobby, came probably from his own experiences growing up in a family that had to confront the challenges of health and bills and often pretty unforgiving bureaucracy. At first, I think Bobby found health law firms mostly did transactional work, but after a period of time, that included backpacking in Europe, which sounds like a blast. Bobby went to work at the Center for Public Representation. He spent 6 years at the center. He was looking at insurance contracts, the law, and some cases in which he and his colleagues helped a lot of families. And then in 1994, some 26 years ago, Bobby founded ABC for Health. All told, ABC has helped more than 60,000 family members get access to health care and health coverage. Yes, 60,000. That's an impact, Bobby. I'll give you that. Now here we are in 2020. The pandemic has this firm grip on our lives, and ABC has responded with what it calls its Pandemic Response Initiative. The effort involves community education directed at the health coverage of minorities in Wisconsin, displaced or dislocated from work because of COVID-19. The group now uses videos on YouTube. The videos talk about accessing healthcare during the pandemic, using social media and whatever other avenues they can find to really get the word out to people and get them the help they need. ABC provides the voice for people who don't have one. The people at ABC, led by Bobby, use creativity, innovation, really anything else they can think of to get people the help they need. They use grants, contracts, charitable contributions to help link people to legal services and information that will help them get health care. That's something that Bobby Peterson has been doing for 26 years now, really longer than that, even before ABC for Health. So after this long and winding journey since law school, we thought it was time to recognize Bobby Peterson for his work. So at this time, please help me recognize and congratulate Bobby Peterson as our 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award winner.
Well, thank you, Tom, and members of the committee, the State Bar, Wisconsin Lawyer Magazine, Joyce Hastings. The opportunity to work with you folks was great. You're so professional and detailed in your approach. No stone was unturned, and it made this very enjoyable for me and for my staff. We appreciate the recognition. This doesn't happen just because of me, but it's really a dedicated staff that has worked for years on these issues. We've worked on access to healthcare coverage, insurance. We started mainly working with children and youth with special healthcare needs who faced many obstacles. And over the years, we've continued to innovate. I appreciate the fact that the State Bar recognizes innovators because it's so important to keep moving things forward, to look at things differently. My old boss at the Center for Public Representation, Louise Strubeck, as a law student and as a young attorney, used to always tell me, keep thinking, keep thinking. I didn't quite understand what she was talking about then. I'm like, oh, well, I've got the answers for this. But I think her really was keep innovating, keep thinking more about it, because there are other ways, there are other angles, there are other solutions to be thinking about. And innovation is sort of baked into our DNA at ABC for Health. We've tried to do as many, if it's a new angle, we'll try it. We might fail, but we're going to try it. We've created our own in-house studio back in 2006, and so we've been doing webinars, like this, way back, or in the mid 2000s. We created subsidiaries when we focused on rural health needs. We created ABC for Rural Health to address some of the unique challenges that rural populations face. We created a technology subsidiary that's a for-profit. Hopefully it's going to be a funder of ABC for Health down the road at some point. But the technology that we secured with our partners from the NIH, I think we're the only public interest law firm that has received funding from the National Institute of Health to build a tool called Advocus that is a TurboTax-like tool for health benefits that we use for our clients to help sort and identify and help build a pathway to coverage for them, identify legal challenges and hurdles that are in the way and help address those, but also work on strategies of prevention, because we know that for a lot of low-income folks that if we get in that space early enough, we can help them avoid medical debt, collections, bill payment that they can't afford. So there's things that we can do. The Wisconsin Hospital Association, has reported just this month $1.3 billion in uncompensated care. Now think what strategies we can use to help avoid that and get payment up front. And we can with better access to services and support with legal leverage as a part of it. Our models are always really based upon the fact that we have attorneys that can execute legal judgments and services to help move the system when it doesn't want to move, Medicaid, private insurance, other things. We've really tried to be innovative in terms of how we communicate. We created a subsidiary, Health Watch Wisconsin, for education and policy. Bryn McBride is our YouTube star who is putting out videos left and right, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, on open enrollment walkthrough, SSI rule changes. I mean, some of this stuff, these aren't cat videos. There's a lot of people watching them and appreciating the fact that we're presenting the information in an approachable way. But this work is challenging. Most of us in the legal services world face funding limits. COVID has presented a challenge, but I think we're largely undeterred because I think for us, we want to keep moving forward. We want to keep innovating. We want to keep trying to do things a little differently to improve the process. And I've got a staff meeting coming up just after this, and there's always an agenda item in our meeting of, process improvement, innovation. How are we going to change things? How are we going to do it a little differently? And like I said, that's part of our DNA. So I want to thank all of you and the innovators. Congratulations to you, and encourage the State Bar to continue this process of recognizing innovation. It's so important to the legal profession. It's so important for legal services to low-income people. And we can always do more, and we will keep the fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Great work by you and your team. Congratulations. So that's it, folks. On behalf of the Communications Committee, as well as Joyce Hastings and all the great staff at the State Bar who make a lot of this very possible for us to do our work, and worked really hard on this project, I want to personally extend congratulations to all of our innovators here today. Finally, before we go, I just want to say that the project is going to go on. We're going to be looking for examples of legal innovation in 2021 in an effort to build on these shining examples in our first 7 years of our program, and particularly the innovators today. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for hearing the stories of our innovators. This is really rewarding work for us on the committee. It's really a lot of fun to uncover all this work that is being done out there to make the legal profession better for everyone, especially for the clients.